more people in our meeting. So do you think the lady's gonna run? Do you think she'll run? I do too.
Yep.
Everybody's here.
Yep.
You have that attitude. No reason to
She's a
call her.
mother.
Right.
She can read my handwriting. Yep.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
She's a Republican. Do you-
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. We have before us an agenda. There are several changes to the agenda. 7C, the DSS Advisory Board appointment will be removed from consent agenda and deferred to a future meeting, future governing body meeting. VMware update is an added item, and that will become the new 7C under the consent agenda. And we do have a closed session. City Attorney, can you please provide that citation?
Yes, it'll be paragraph 1 of subsection 2.2-3711A.
I can't hear you. What?
Paragraph 1 of subsection 2.2-3711A.
Okay, thank you, thank
You're
you. Please join us for a moment of silence, and Councilmember Amaya, can you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay. Next, we have public comment time. I see we have two folks signed up for public comment. First is Mr. Mike Smith. If you could come to the microphone, speak directly into the microphone, limit your comments to 3 minutes. City Attorney will be the timekeeper, and state your name and address. Thank you.
Mike Smith, 102 Colfax. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the governing body. And I saw on the agenda online that you've added a discussion on driveway widths, and I'm here tonight to discuss that. I'm going to read from two sections of the city code. Section 3127 is the section of off-street parking requirements for single-family homes approved by council in April 2021. Section 3127 goes into great detail about off-street parking requirements for single-family homes. It states that when they have been enlarged by 10% or more of their original as-built floor area, are required to have a minimum off-street parking area of at least 2 spaces. Each space must measure a minimum of 9 feet by 18, exclusive of access drives and aisles, and must be connected with a street or alley by a paved driveway which affords ingress and egress for an automobile without requiring another automobile to be moved. All spaces shall be provided adequate access by means of maneuvering lanes of sufficient width to serve interior traffic movement. Additionally, 3127 states that a space located inside a private garage shall be considered as 1/2 of an off-street parking space for purposes of determining if the minimum off-street parking requirements have been met. Per council resolution of April 6, 2021, which enacted these parking requirements, it was stated all sections of the code of the city of Manassas Park, Virginia that are inconsistent or in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. Now I'm going to read from a second section of code, 31-30, which is the section that deals with special height and yard restrictions. It talks about things like the height of your chimney or your church spire. The very last sentence of 3130 states that any lot containing a single-family dwelling may not have a combined paved area for driveway or parking purposes exceeding 20 feet in width or 20% of the front yard, whichever is greater. We're asking the council to consider the conflict between these two sections of code. How are you going to fit 2 driveways, a minimum of 9 feet by 18 feet each, with sufficient space to move around and get them all to fit within 20 feet, given the non-uniform lot sizes within the city? It is our opinion that Section 3130, Paragraph D, Section 6 should be reviewed for possible conflict with the more comprehensive rules laid out by this council in 3127. It is also our opinion that given the significant and well-documented parking challenges within the city and the fact that many new driveways are going in that exceed 20 feet or 20%, forcing residents to demolish driveways which have existed for years or decades is a waste of city resources and is not in keeping with the good of the city. And your favorite part, some pictures. Lots of them.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. Our next speaker is Mr. Ben Dorr. Mr. Dorr, welcome. Can you please state your name, address, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes? Thank you.
Absolutely. My name is Ben Dorr. I live at 223 Lambert Drive. I've been a resident of Manassas Park for 30 years of that particular address. My wife, however, has lived there for 55, so she grew up there. I actually grew up in Manassas, but and I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but my mom used to say, if you don't speak up, nobody will ever hear you. So we have some really serious issues regarding our city, and it's a city that we love. Shootings, stabbings, drugs, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I believe that we all have to come together and work on this as a community. We have laws and ordinances and codes, which, like Mike probably said, need to be ironed out, and they need to be enforced. And we need to obey them as citizens. And there has to be consequences when they aren't. My German Shepherd and I, we walk 8 to 10 miles every single day in Manassas Park. We see an alarming amount of violations, and it's just has a very negative impact on our city. There are multiple motor vehicle laws, not just the city of Manassas Parks, but the state of Virginia's that are in violation. And I'll just say a couple really quick to save time. But, you know, the big thing is no mufflers and excessive noise, windshields being completely tinted out. You can't see in the vehicle. You can't see the inspection. You can't see the city sticker. Cars missing tags, front and the back tags are distorted to a point where you can't read them. And I'm sure this is to evade red light cameras or whatever. Codes, we have trash cans that are outside 365 in the street, typically used to block parking. Cars that block the sidewalk, which makes it really dangerous for my dog and I to have to go out into traffic to get around them. Electric scooters and bicycles on the sidewalks, which again is really dangerous. And then dogs off leash, which is really dangerous for my dog because he's a 110-pound German Shepherd, and I don't want him to eat somebody's small dog and then be put down. Just recently, the last set of shootings we had at Lambert and Holden, which is literally one house from me, I've noticed a really large increase of police presence. Thank you so much.
Sir, your time's up. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dorr. Is there anyone who is not signed up but who would still like to make public comment? Seeing no one and hearing no one, we'll move on. Okay, we have 2 public hearings this evening. The first public hearing, the topic is amendment to the grass and weed ordinance. I declare the public hearing open.
Good evening. My public comments are going to be similar for both of these ordinances, but city staff, when dealing with grass and weeds specifically, when someone is in violation and has not rectified it, we'll have a vendor, our vendor who cuts our grass for the public right-of-way, go onto private property to cut the grass to ensure enforcement. We felt more comfortable going to the magistrate to get a warrant for that process. The magistrate told us that was going to work, and then when we went back with the updated ordinance, well, he said it would work if we have it in our ordinance, and then we did that, and then we went back and said, no, it's not going to work. It's not permitted. So we're going back to the initial state legislation, which does allow us to do it. This was just more of a staff comfort thing. We prefer to get a warrant, but we're already authorized by state law to go ahead and just proceed with proceeding to get the grass and weeds cut. So this ordinance will just bring it back to where we were before.
Okay, thank you.
And it's going to be the same thing for inoperable vehicles, the same exact process. And we do have a long list of inoperable vehicles that we do want to get towed.
Okay, any comments or questions from the governing body? Yes, ma'am.
Was it the same magistrate that gave both directions or different magistrates?
Calvin, do you remember? Is it the same? Same? Okay, same.
Well, the chief magistrate actually met with our prosecuting attorney and told him that he would not be issuing the warrants.
Okay.
So I don't know who the original magistrate was that said do it, but chief magistrate got involved and said he wasn't going to let the magistrates do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments or questions? Okay, is there anyone who would like to make public comment regarding this public hearing? Seeing no one and hearing no one, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, our next public hearing is amendment to the inoperable vehicles ordinance. I declare the public hearing open.
So same scenario here for this one. This one, we really wanted the warrant for the tow truck companies to feel comfortable doing this, but we'll have our police join them to start towing the long list of inoperable vehicles that we've identified over the past couple of years that we've been trying to go through the court process, but it's easier just to tow them.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions from the governing? Yes, ma'am.
So are they actually on property, or are they in the public street, or a combination thereof?
If it was on public street, we wouldn't. It would be a lot easier because then there would be no issues with the tow companies going on to private property. But they're on private property,
Okay,
and that makes it challenging sometimes for us to visually confirm that they're there as well. But those that we visually confirmed, we're going to go ahead and get them towed.
okay. Well, and people will learn, they'll get the word out. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Is there a member of the public who would like to make public comment on this public hearing? Seeing no one and hearing no one, do we have a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Both of these will be voted on later this evening so that we can keep moving forward on community maintenance issues. Okay, next we have downtown events schedule.
Give us 1 second, please. Okay. You guys going to be able to bring it up across? So we just got control today of all the screens. So our goal is we're going to have this. There we go. We're starting to get it.
We're good.
Yeah. So now you're going to be able to see the slide decks a little bit closer now. So we're finally able to control the screens. Hopefully soon we'll have full control of the sound system as well. And you can see we have longer goosenecks, so we don't have to necessarily hold them that close to our mouths. But tonight, this is just more of an information item. We have some events planned for the remaining part of calendar year 2023 in our downtown. Not an extensive program. Again, we don't have the businesses here yet to really push that, but it's more kind of community-themed programs. If you notice, the splash pad on a regular basis this summer has just been used by our family, so we're very, very happy about that. I think the kids love it, and same thing with our library. So that we already know that families are congregating on our plaza for the splash pad, so we want to give them some other community events as well to enjoy. So I'll be turning it over to Melissa Williams, our downtown events, tourism, and business coordinator, who will be going over kind of the program. So you'll see the calendar here that kind of lists the different events, and then we have individual slides for some new events that we'll describe. And then again, the goal is we'll eventually present kind of a more robust program as our downtown advances that will be with more extensive projects as well. But this is kind of the initial start here, just to start getting our community, our residents out here to the plaza. So Melissa? Just change the slide. It's right here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members of the governing body. I am Melissa Williams, as Mr. Palco introduced, and I have compiled all the events for the calendar from July all the way to December, and have actually come up with a few events that I think might actually be community-oriented, just to get things going. Mayor, am I speaking loud enough?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
So I have July up on the slide deck, and as you see, the first thing that's going to start is actually story time. This is the museum's outdoor not museum, libraries, outdoor story time that they're going to do, weather permitting, telling stories outside in the area. So they're going to do this at 10:30 a.m. weather permitting, and it's going to be between the two buildings, the commercial space, City Hall, and the library, as you see, right where those two bike racks are, where the arrow is pointing. In August, what we have is the National Night Out for the police. We have also on the 12th of August is the library's end of summer event. We have Workout Wednesday. This is something that Parks and Rec is starting. It will be in the early mornings. They're still working on that. And again, we still have the Storytime Tuesday. And permitting, possibly last Fridays. Last Fridays is a little bit different than what most counties are doing. They're doing first Fridays. So I figured a last Friday might be something unique, something different, because this downtown is unique and is different. It's actually very forward-thinking. So I wanted to be forward-thinking with that. And the slide is last Fridays. This is kind of an idea of some promotions. So the little logo for the last Friday, I like the tree logo that you all created. It's very cute. It's usable and everything. I can hide it and things. So I like the tree. This I have planned for 6 to 9 p.m. And the plan was to get the breweries, distilleries, and the wineries to come out and be the alcohol part of the event. So they serve, they sell. That will require me to, with ABC, get a permit each month that I do that. This permit has to be done at least 45 days prior to the event to be approved. I've already talked to our ABC rep, and he has already gone through everything with me as to what I need. It's $90 each time we do it. And this allows the breweries and distilleries to get their remote license to be able to come out and serve to the community. And then we would have a band or a DJ that would come out and play some music, and they would be themed more like Jazz in July or, something Cinco de Mayo, stuff like that. With those last Fridays, they would be themed so people could come out and get with that. And this would be the layout that we have. So there would be food trucks. There would be maybe a few vendors, i.e. something like desserts, like Tummy Yum Yum, who does marvelous candy apples. I have the Floss King, who does these wonderful characters with cotton candy, so he makes them look like animals. And of course, the DJ would be up against the wall towards Manassas Drive. It's sound kind of going out that way and not that way. Workout Wednesdays, as you see, they're going to have stretching, salsa, and boot camp were the three that they're using. And they're using this from people that are already doing it at the community center. They've talked to them. They're willing to come out. They're just needing to get this scheduled all together. It's going to be 45 minutes long. It is free. And the people are just going to bring out their own mats and enjoy some exercise in the mornings on Wednesdays. And this is the layout for that as well. It's on the plaza side next to the commercial building, away from all the tables and the splash pad. In September, Workout Wednesdays is going to continue, and hopefully there will be a farmer's market Wednesday evening. A farmer's market Wednesday evening would work out well. I've done a Thursday market in the morning. Summer times it's busy. Soon as school starts, it gets slow. An evening one with the VRE right here, the housing all over, it's perfect for the vendors, and it's perfect for the people to be able to get their produce without wanting to go to the Saturday one. There are people who just don't like going to the busy Saturday ones, so Thursday or Wednesday offers them the opportunity to get that without the huge crowds. And of course, there is Storytime Tuesday continuing. It's just once a month, she told me. And then we have last Fridays again. And you have the Latino Festival. Yvette and another person is working on that over at the community center area. And the layout, no layout. So in October, again, Workout Wednesdays is going to continue. Farmers Market will continue. Storytime Tuesdays continues on Halloween. She's going to do a Halloween theme. And an event that would be new is Halloween. Following would be a mix of a fall festival and a Halloween festival tied together. This is the flyer that I created for that. And what we're looking to do is more of a community event with a Halloween costume, decorated pumpkin costume, so that buy the pumpkins, bring them already decorated or carved, an aerialist in costume performing. We're going to have vendors that do henna, Reiki, tarot card reading, craft artisans, bakeries, some food trucks, some community vendors such as the Clerk of Court, MAPS, and DSS will be coming out also. And an amusement with rock walls and inflatable activities. Those will be over at the B&B lot in the grassy area. And possibly a maze when I figure out how to do that. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do that. So street closures for that will technically be right there at Park Central Plaza off of Manassas Drive, and at the end where Naylor can just go around the back lot to get around all that. So we're keeping it to the front, basically. And when you look at the map, that's the amount of vendors. I would like to bring out 2 produce vendors for that event with their pumpkins, their corn stalks, their mums that they usually have. I have 2 that are interested, so that it's really a community event. That's what I'm wanting it. I don't want it to be more of a vendor event. I want it to be more of a community event with the games and the produce vendors and just a community coming together and enjoying fall and Halloween. And this would be the area with the possible maze, Entertainment Avenues, the company that brings the inflatables and the rock wall and everything. And we have the kids' games for the kids and the aerialist. All of that is still needing to be worked on. I need to talk with the aerialist because I know they need a very firm area for them. So then in November again, we've got the farmers market continuing to go and the Veterans Day flag ceremony. But on the plaza, we're working with a downtown business, which is your bridal shop that is here on Manassas Drive. She has been talking with me about getting more exposure. So we discussed doing a small bridal expo on the plaza to help get some exposure for her. This is a collaboration between the city and the business so that we can help her get more attention. And so brides will know where she's at and people can meet the vendors and really get a grasp that there's a business down here and she's great. So we've got her, we're working with her on that, securing all the vendors for that. And the layout for that is pretty simple. Again, on the plaza, she can't have too many vendors. She'll have a DJ, 2 food trucks, and then most of it is going to be like cake vendors, wedding type vendors, everything to weddings, with a fashion show, with all of her bridal gowns. I've looked at her bridal gowns. They're quite lovely, and she's got one that's very, very special that has not sold yet, so that's going to be the prime one for that expo. And in December, we have the tree lighting, the light parade, Fire with Santa's ride, and a new Dickens Holiday Festival. So Dickens Holiday Festival is something that I'm very used to over in England. And the streets would literally come alive. So what I did with this here is in the downtown plaza, you're going to get Scrooged in the downtown plaza. We're going to turn it into a Dickens Festival. And with that, what we're going to do is have places such as Oliver's Alley. I've already talked to the library. She's working with me for kids' activities in Oliver's Alley. Then we will have a little pub called Pickwick's Pub. This is all out of Scrooge. And we will have a friend of mine and her theatrical performers would like to come out and do little skits in and about. So it's a walking theater, technically, of doing skits from Scrooge. So they'll interact with the people in and around by doing skits with Scrooge. Gerani is Ken Mormon, and I were talking about doing a Victorian tea, which he would help me with that. So we would like to do a little Victorian tea. And we would also have dancers that I have been talking to with one of the School of Dance. I've used them before with some of my events. And they do this wonderful toy soldiers. Not toy soldiers, but, the nutcrackers. They do a great skit with the Nutcracker, so they'll do a small performance for that. And basically that plaza is going to be very Dickens, very festive, very holiday, with a lot of performances and a lot of things for people to do. And that would, literally, this is the layout here. Oliver's Alley, which is the library, is going to take up. That would be pretty much at the entrance. And that's the end of that. Those are the events, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This is a delightful variety of events. It's wonderful.
you.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Yeah.
Question. Have you given any consideration to have maybe Channel 5 come out on one of those days when they, they come to the different areas and they broadcast that morning? I think this would, I don't know how you do it, but I'm sure it's probably somewhere on their website. It'd actually probably be a really good idea to have them come out, give us some exposure, especially that Dickinson's,
Festival.
yes,
Yeah.
and the following as well.
Okay. Yeah, I would be happy to look into that.
Very good. I appreciate the presentation. Very
Thank
good.
you,
Thank
sir.
you.
I appreciate that.
Dickens is especially appealing. I love Victoriana.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's my favorite.
Comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I love this, and I love to see that there's a farmer's market on Wednesdays. Has there been any discussion about a farmer's market on the weekend as well, or?
I've mentioned it to Mr. Palco, but not until next year. That is a very large market. Once I put it out there to all the vendors I've worked with prior, it's going to be, it's not going to be small.
Okay.
It's not going to be small at all.
That's good.
So
That's good to hear.
it's just working with Mr. Palco to find the proper place for it to be, since it will be rather large. I mean, we're not talking about 60 vendors. We're looking at more 90 to 100 plus vendors
Wow.
that are interested.
Great. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Some
that.
wonderful ideas here, creative. How do you plan on marketing and getting our residents engaged and apprised of all these wonderful events we're going to have in our downtown?
So in past, for me, I've used schools when schools are up and operating to get out things that are community going. Of course, we use our social media. And I have also, used shop owners and, places like that. The MAPS clinic, Yvette is working with me to get the word out to, because she's very well connected with the community with her job. So we're just, bouncing things off of each other as to the best place to put flyers, the best place to get the information out. I have always used schools prior, because they let the kids know. And these events are perfect for the kids. So I utilize what I can, and if I can, Potomac Local, Uriah with Potomac Local told me anytime I need him to push something, just let him know, so he will help push those also. And of course, using News 5 or other places to get it out would be great.
And then variable message boards as well. When we
Message
can.
boards, good. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
we'll use some
effective.
message boards. And the good thing about the plaza is they'll drive by. A lot of times they say, oh, an event's happening, so they'll stop by.
back.
It's perfectly located to attract people, but we'll use the variable message boards and city social media, other community center, other things to try to promote them.
And so the calendar will be on the web, or it's probably already there, right?
I believe it is on the website.
It's on there now from this agenda item, but we'll make sure to incorporate it into the overarching calendar as well.
Yes, yes. Just clarification, the Halloween event sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
We're not doing away with trunk or treat, is that correct?
No, that's the
Okay.
following
Just downtown,
weekend.
okay.
Yes,
Because that's
yeah.
such a popular event.
Yeah, it's just going prior to the event, so following with the trunk or treat the following weekend.
Good.
We're just doing something to get people into that Halloween spirit and mood, and give them kids. When parents buy costumes for their kids, they love to take them as many places to get as much use out of that costume as possible. So this gives them more places to go.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I just got a question about these different events. I guess we'll get a cost to the city for each event as they come, or?
I intend to basically use sponsorship to pay for much of it. I'm really actually pretty good at keeping costs down for things like this. Like the Entertainment Avenue, she doesn't charge to come out. She actually just charges the people. She sets up, and then they charge the people the tickets. There's no cost to us
And
for her to come
the
out and use
Halloween
that.
event too.
Yes.
We had some leftover funding for like Community Day, so we're going to actually have more, community services, social services style nonprofits as well to kind of promote their services as well. So we still have that revenue stream, but sponsorships have just been paying for these. And then we did add in Jay's line item or in the CIP just for equipment as we start building up our downtown events before they'll tap into as well. But the goal is to
That was
try to make these revenue neutral this year.
Yeah, that was my next
Yes.
question, is if his budget for these has increased? Because, I mean, you're going to have to buy benches, porta potties, band, maybe if you're paying a band. I don't
Not
know.
necessarily the benches. I mean, we have some existing
Right.
equipment, but again, the goal is the sponsorships would help pay for this. So we're trying to keep these revenue neutral.
Sure, that's good.
So the vendor fees, the vendors do
Oh, they pay the fee.
to come in, and those vendor fees help to levy that out as well.
Excellent. No, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Any more questions?
No?
No?
Okay.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a question about the Bridal Expo.
Yes,
Since it's in November, there's a chance for rain. Will you make rain accommodations, like with a tent or anything like that?
She and I have been talking about a tent. If there is actually rain, yes, there will be a tent to put up for that.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of June 20th and June 27th, 2023. Approval of the appointment of Mr. Andrew Almazan Silva and Mr. Kevin Moreau to serve on the Board of Directors of the city's Economic Development Authority for the remainder of the vacant terms that will expire on November 18th, 2023. Approval of the appointment of Mr. Andrew Almazan Silva and Mr. Kevin Moreau to serve on the Board of Directors of the city's Economic Development Authority for a new four-year terms that will commence on November 19th, 2023, and expire on November 18th, 2027. And authorization for city manager to approve the attached CDWG quote for VMware at the police station pending final review by city attorney.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to 8A, zoning ordinance text amendment 23-04, public hearing having been held on June 20th.
Good evening, Mayor Ritchell, Vice Mayor Mensing, members of council, residents, staff, guests. I'm Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. As the mayor mentioned, the governing body first heard public hearing on this zoning text amendment, zoning text amendment 2304 on June 20th. This text amendment is to essentially remove existing uses inside the mixed-use district and prescribe new uses, as well as some associated amendments related to definition changes and things of that nature. We heard this before the Planning Commission back in June 14th. They recommended forwarding this to the governing body. They gave it their seal of approval. The details of the amendment have already been heard in the public hearing, so I'm really just here tonight to answer any questions. And Mickey's sorry that she couldn't be here this evening. So if you have any questions that involve legal interpretation or zoning interpretation, I'm going to have to defer over to Dean, but I'm happy to field any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Calvin. Questions or comments?
All right, so come back to me, please. I'm gonna look it up on the phone.
Comments or questions? Okay, we're back to you.
Okay, give me a second. I don't have it in the packet, so I'm looking on the phone
Okay,
to make
take your
sure.
time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. No, I don't have any. It's the next thing I have a question on.
I'm sorry?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, no questions. If there are no other questions, we will go on to the motion. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body adopt an ordinance approving zoning ordinance text amendment number 23-04 as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. We're on to 8B, rezoning Artina Phase 4, public hearing having been held June 27th.
Good evening again. The public hearing was held on June 27th. There was some discussion at that public hearing. The governing body had some concerns. Staff had already stated their concerns to the applicant, but after the public hearing, the applicant did agree to the four things that we discussed in the meeting. Connor Drive, they are going to provide a frontage design for the existing section of Connor Drive that they will be constructing. And in that will hopefully ensure that when and if we ever do extend Connor Drive, that we won't have to change that side of the street, that it will already comply with VDOT urban standards, and that we'll just have to worry about the remainder of the roadway. The existing crosswalk that will be in conflict with the new traffic movement, they are going to remove that. They are going to remove the Novec Cobra heads and underground all utilities along Manassas Drive. And there will also be a direct path provided from the parking garage to the intersection of Manassas Drive. So those were the four issues that they agreed to after the meeting. The other issues that we need to discuss are the waivers. And waiver 2203B was an impervious area increase from 75% to 90%. Clearly, this is a tight site. We're asking them to put 150 spaces on this site that will not be specifically for their use. We've given these types of waivers before in the downtown. It is a tight area to try to build in. They're doing their best. The next waiver would be a 2203C, which is a reduction in the minimum building height from 40 feet to 20 feet, and that's specifically in regards to the garage. And I believe Carlos Montenegro, who's here tonight, told you that they're not quite done designing the buildings yet. These kind of building designs are in flux, but the garage may not be 40 feet, will not likely be 40 feet. Will probably be somewhere right around 20 feet or slightly taller. So this waiver will give them that assurance that they're not designing something that will later be a zoning violation. And then 2203G we know they would be required to put a 6-foot high fence to screen themselves from the I-1 district. But in lieu of that, staff would like to see a screening and landscape plan. Clearly a 6-foot fence is not the most attractive way to screen. So we would like for them to submit a screening and landscape plan instead of that. And that seems to be a reasonable waiver request.
Okay, thank you, Calvin. Comments or questions?
I do.
Yes, go ahead.
About the last waiver that you mentioned, having the vegetative screening, will that keep potentially children out from being able to go from their apartment complex to the industrial lot?
Well, remember that they have not submitted the screening plan yet, so we don't know if this is going to be purely vegetative screening, if there's going to be a fence involved. That's something that will come later. They're simply just asking for the waiver of the 6-foot fence requirement, but with the caveat that they must provide a screening and landscaping plan that accomplishes the same thing. So we'll have to look at that when that plan comes in.
And when we do, will we be taking that into an account?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Comments or questions? Yes, go ahead.
No, it's a little confusing because, one, we're requesting the waiver to not allow the screening, but then you're saying there is a screening.
Well, so you need
plan.
to screen between uses.
Right.
I'm not the zoning administrator. You guys made Mickey the zoning administrator. She's much better at explaining these types of things, but you've got a residential use, then you've got an industrial use. These are non-compatible uses. There needs to be some sort of screening in between them, visual screening, keeping out the noise of any automotive repair or anything that's going on over there from the residential side of things. Screening between uses is a common zoning practice everywhere. We need some sort of screening, visual buffer, audio buffer, something like that. But the 6-foot high fence, that's just sort of a generic thing to require. There are other ways to accomplish that, and lots of jurisdictions, entertain these types of waivers all the time. Sometimes you say it's got to be a 6 to 8 foot fence, but maybe a berm with evergreens on top of it's a better solution. Probably offers more noise buffering and things like that. So this is not uncommon. We have pretty stringent language in our zoning code, and sometimes we need to be more flexible. But there are more than one way to screen uses from each other. It doesn't always have to be a fence.
So they could put a 6-foot fence if they wanted to then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I was a little confused because the waiver and then the zoning, okay. Can it go higher than 6 foot though? If they wanted to put like a 10-foot or maybe even like a retaining wall or something like that, is there restrictions on that type of?
I am not that familiar with the height restrictions unless I know that on a residential lot, 8 foot would be the cutoff by building code, and 6 foot, I think, is the cutoff in our zoning code. But that again is single family residential in the R1, not in the MUD. I'm not familiar with the fence height regulations in the MUD.
You can go up to 8 feet. If you look at section 3131, what is it, 3, it says that the maximum fence height may be increased to 8 feet in any yard when approved as part of a rezoning or site plan for the PUD or MUD district. So it could go up to 8 feet. But I want to point out also, I mean, these 2 lots over there are part of the long-term plan for redevelopment. So it may not even be necessary if they're acquired before then and redeveloped.
Right. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Follow up? No? Okay. Comments or questions?
I thought I saw on here, and I can't find it right now, about the parking, the reduction from 1.75 to 1.3.
There was discussion of the parking, but they've actually exceeded staff recommendations on the parking.
Okay,
Yeah, it's in the packet. It was not an actual requested waiver, though.
okay.
Correct?
No, it is in the waiver page. Let me tell you which page it is. I'm going down to it right now.
Yeah, I can't find it for the life of me right now.
Well, it's in the memo too. I listed it there.
Maybe that's where I saw it.
Yeah, it's in the memo, and then it's the actual waiver
Okay.
request, though.
So my question, and it's probably more for Laszlo, that parking that we're talking about, that's also going to assist with across the street as well?
No, separate. So that's why the site is so tight to what Calvin was talking about, because they're building an additional 150 spaces that has nothing to do with their development or their parking requirements. It's purely to support Park 170.
Okay.
So every parking that they're building for their site is in addition to that 150. So that's what makes this such a tight space. And to Calvin's point, so it's actually on page 72 of the packet, waiver 22-03E. So we determined that 1.2 spaces were adequate, and they went up to 1.3 when we did our independent analysis of the actual parking needs. But their waivers to go down from 1.75 down to 1.3.
Okay, that's why I couldn't find it, because I have it on, I'm missing 72 here. No problem. Okay. All right, that helps, thank you.
Did the 1.2 recommendation, Laszlo, did that include the 1 space per 10 unit requirement?
It didn't.
It did not.
No, I just did the analysis just as a total of what the actual
Okay.
needs were. And because there's no commercial besides our great bridal shop and bank in Park 170, I got to really isolate the variable for parking in the downtown. Yeah, and they own Artena, and they could tell you the same thing as well with what's happening in Artena.
Okay.
Yeah, the lots, the Connor House lot is virtually empty all the time, as is the lot behind Artena for residents. It's just most of the time empty. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any final comments or questions? Nope, okay. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve rezoning 22-03 Artena Park, subject to the general development plan submitted by the applicant dated March 30th, 2023, and the proffer statement submitted by the applicant dated July 11th, 2023, and approve the waivers and modifications included in the waiver and modification request submitted by the applicant dated July 11th, 2023, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Calvin.
You.
Okay, moving on to 8C would be the proposed meeting calendar.
I've made no changes since last time we met. I do have the spreadsheet if you guys want to make any changes, but
It's, go ahead.
Mr. City Manager, was there a need to meet during the month of August? I see we have a meeting on the 29th.
as of right now, no, but we're, from this meeting to that meeting, it's a pretty long break, so I figured
I always thought we took
Yeah.
a recess in the month of August.
we haven't historically, it's been brought up before as an idea to do so and to meet. The problem is in September, the first Tuesday is usually after Labor Day.
Yep,
So
the
it's
12th.
it's tough, but, you know, some people are taking off that time, so that's why we usually haven't put something on that date. But let me take a quick look, my apologies.
It's a really long time to go from July 18th until into September.
I would think we would have to move it up to September 5th then, just to make sure we don't, you know, that first Tuesday.
When's Labor Day?
Labor Day is the 4th.
4th.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be too hard for staff to,
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I think
we could do it. I mean, I think we'll be back, most of us should be back that last week of August if anyone's taking vacation. I know I'll be here, so I'll be able to build the agenda. It's just I was concerned if anyone was taking vacation and wasn't going to be back by Tuesday from the governing body, just in case they took a longer time off for Labor Day, if anyone had those plans.
what's the reason
doesn't
that you
the-
don't want to meet in August?
The theory of we take recess in August.
Well, we've never taken a recess before.
Well, we talked about it.
I think the charter requires that we meet at least once a month.
I'm sorry.
I think the charter requires that we have a meeting once a month. I thought I saw that.
And
I thought the only requirement was July. meaning
I do
third.
know that I did add something.
Meeting in July.
Yeah, and I did add something to the August agenda that requires approval by the city council 60 days before the event, which would be the veteran flag raising.
Okay, November.
And we have virtually the entire month of August off. I mean, the 29th is almost at the end. It's almost the last day.
But, yeah. But if you have an item that you need
It should be, I mean,
testified.
yeah, and it should be right now, a quick meeting, but I dare not jinx us.
It'll be quick. It'll be
That'll be
quick.
the 10-hour meeting. No, that's fine. We'll go ahead. That's fine. I just, again, maybe next year, we can work towards having the entire month of August off.
Yeah.
We had
Just let
talked
me know.
about it before.
Yeah.
It's not, this isn't new. Okay.
Very few of us have had the entire month of August off in our entire life. No, I'm just saying.
Something new.
So, yep.
Something new.
Okay. So any other comments or questions? Okay. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body adopt the FY24 meeting calendar as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9A, Motorola portable radio purchase. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the
You
body.
want to state that?
Hey, Chief, hold up.
We did find it. It's in section 3.7 of the charter. We have to meet at least once a month, so you're.
Say we only supposed to meet once a month only, too?
Pardon me? It says the governing body shall meet in regular session at least
I'm
once
just
each
kidding. I'm
month.
just kidding.
Only.
I'm just kidding. You're the only one who didn't get
Sit in the
it.
corner.
You're the only one who didn't get it.
I didn't hear you. It kind of mumbled.
So I knew you had to meet once a month, so I knew that.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, Chief.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the governing body. So tonight for the fire department, we're going to be asking for some purchase of some radio equipment. In the agenda sheet, I just put portable radios, but it's also portable and mobile radios. So that was a mistake on my part. So currently our portable radios are owned and operated by the fire department. Last time we bought those was FY12. These radios were through the APX 7000s. They're being deemed obsolete by the manufacturer and will no longer provide repair parts or services basically come December this year. They've already started with some of the stuff as early as June, so we're starting to find issues with getting parts already. So the department has decided to select with the Motorola APX Next mobile radios to replace our current radio equipment to increase the interoperability and cut down on coverage of dead spots. So the APX Next radios, that's what most of COG and all of NOVA is trying to push for. And I got some documentation from some meetings where everybody's going that way. A lot of people are there. So currently the fire department radios do not work in a lot of the schools. A lot of our larger businesses, we're having trouble with radio communications within those areas, which is causing a lot of issues with communications. I believe our city manager witnessed that today at the active shooter training. We saw that firsthand. We had that issue. So that's not a good thing to have. So the APX Next radios, they're architectured to include the cellular LTE coverage as well as the Wi-Fi service coverage. And so that's traditionally the radio backbone to allow for more effective use in locations. So when we started working on this years ago, we decided that we'd wait a little bit till the new technology came out instead of buying radios right towards the end of their current life cycle and back in the same spot that we are now. So we waited for this new technology to come out, and by doing that, the cost was $391,616. It is now $413,81. All that funding was laid aside or earmarked in ARPA by the city manager. So the cost difference would be $21,465. So the financial impact would be $413,8146, and it has been budgeted or earmarked in the ARPA funding. So any questions on the radios?
Thank you, Chief. Comments or questions?
I'd like to point something out before you do that. This is actually where it's a cooperative procurement. It's not stated anywhere in the, in there. Yeah, I know you were going to ask that. But that's what this is. You should each have a cooperative procurement agreement. I drafted that up. This is what we'll use to ride this contract. It's a VITA contract. It's a state contract. It was competitively bid. Motorola is one of the companies that got, there's multiple contracts that were issued by VITA, or VITA, however you say it, and we're going with the Motorola one. There's a preferred, or an authorized vendor that we're going to go through called Wireless Communications, Inc., and so that's who the agreement will be for. They will sell us the equipment per that agreement and install it per that agreement, and so we're getting the same pricing that the state got statewide, so it is a competitively bid.
Should that be stated in the report?
It usually is. This came out late, and I was working on this today. That's why I just got this, and I'm stating it for the record for you. Typically it is, but this was something that kind of cropped up at the last minute.
I just want to confirm with Chief Soper. So we're doing active shooter training all week, the police and fire at Cougar this year, and it's really bad, the radio communications. That was probably one of the biggest challenges we had from a command control as they're directing different strike teams and rescue recovery teams in there. It's a big challenge, so expect to see something like this for police. Police are getting about 5 of those in August, so we're going to test them out as well, but hopefully that will improve command communications.
I don't even get cell phone reception in there. It's that bad. Like you go to the gym, my phone is dead.
It's been like that for years.
Yeah.
And that's been a concern because, it's started. Is there any thought about putting any type of tower or anything above the school?
Chief, you want to talk about that? I think that's something Chief Oliver and Major Reinhardt looked at.
There was some discussion about that, but I'll be honest with you, I've not been briefed on that one. That was something that Chief Oliver and the former Major Reinhardt were truly in discussions.
I think their argument was, to Chief's point, it's not just the schools, it's other buildings as well that we have this issue. So having this technology will then allow us to access other commercial buildings, where you have this issue without necessarily having to coordinate to get all the repeaters. So just this technology should help resolve those issues.
They'll take out having to buy repeaters and put them in the schools or in the buildings.
Or have a repeater.
So this stuff already has the capability for Wi-Fi or the cellular, it takes out that need for the repeater.
Oh, no, I agree. I just, his cell phone service doesn't work there, even for the teachers. If there's an incident, you know, the teachers can't even use a cell phone. That's,
Yeah.
that's always,
Yeah,
that's always,
they can't.
I
so.
believe, no, I'm not sure about this one, but I believe the Wi-Fi connection and all the cellular would be tied to one of those carriers that sits at the top of the post. Like, I can tell you my cell phone gets out anywhere I go, whereas other people are struggling to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be Wi-Fi because remember the cameras that we're installing as well. So, but we can work with the schools for in general. If teachers are struggling with cell phone communication, we'll talk to the schools and see what can be done. And that would help this even further if you increase, because this works off both Wi-Fi and cellular. So if something's wrong with the Wi-Fi, then it can bounce over to the cellular network.
Do you have a follow-up?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do these
Comments or
radio,
questions?
yeah, do these radios communicate nationally? Can you communicate with other jurisdictions through these radios?
Yes, ma'am. Through the whole P25 compliance thing that went nationally after 9/11 went down.
Right,
That was one of the big pickups there, so yes.
okay. And
As
then I have
long as it's
another-
not, as long as they're not encrypted to another channel that we can't get to, which,
But you get 2 encrypted channels off of them,
right.
correct?
Right.
And I think that's the Nova push, is everybody's going to be encrypted sooner or later.
Right.
And I have another question that might not have anything to do with this, but I think the Department of Social Services has a panic button for their staff. Do we have something like that for Laura when she's there by herself in the fire department?
No.
Okay, is that something that we can look into for her?
You're talking about at the fire station?
Yeah,
We
'cause
didn't get
she
a
doesn't
panic
have
button there?
anything, and she's there usually by herself, is what I've heard.
Very infrequently, she's there by herself. I'm usually there with her a lot of the time, and she usually is about the same schedule I'm there, or the fire marshal's there, who's an armed officer. So
Okay.
the fire marshal's usually armed in there, so he's usually our protection there. She has access to cameras on the TV screen in her office as well as on her computer.
Okay,
Anybody that tries to come through the front door has to buzz a button that goes to her computer, so it's well, lit up.
okay,
The
all right,
security is very good at the
Yeah.
fire station.
thank you.
Comments or questions?
I just have one quick one.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's just more out of my curiosity than anything else. You mentioned portable but mobile. What's the difference, or is it
So
just,
the portables, these are the radios you hold in your hand.
Okay.
And you truly make them portable. The mobiles are what are mounted in the apparatus.
okay,
They're fixed inside the apparatus.
okay, thank you. I was just curious.
Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll move on to the staff recommended motion that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents to purchase radio upgrade equipment and portable radios for the Fire and Rescue Department from Wireless Communications Incorporated pursuant to the cooperative procurement provisions of the Virginia Public Procurement Act as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Chief.
Have a good night.
Okay, moving on to 9B, which is amendment to the inoperable vehicles ordinance. Public hearing held earlier. Any last-minute comments or questions for staff?
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
Not to step out for that, but my question was, I guess we could go on these properties without a warrant now, but the whole point was for the issue of the warrant in the first place was for the safety of the staff and vendors.
Well, I guess there was more concern that they wanted to have some sort of additional authority that they could show the resident.
So that's what I'm saying. So now what if the resident has confrontation with
Well,
the
the
staff?
police will just have to be there.
We're going to have police.
Okay.
The police should be there anyway for towing, but
Yeah, for towing, that makes sense, but for the grass, like if you guys gonna get community, public works out there or something,
Yeah, it's usually we'll work, but if they're going to have issues, then we'll have law enforcement go out there. and help them.
all right, that's all I wanted to clarify.
And just more of a statement. I've been talking to other jurisdictions throughout the state. We're not the only ones with this issue. You'd be amazed how many, I've probably talked about a dozen, and probably about maybe a quarter of those have had the same issue, not only with grass, weeds, everything from code enforcement issues. It's just not us.
Oh, no, I was specifically talking about the confrontation.
I know.
Between the homeowner and.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to address these issues, but I was just worried that if they come out and just get in their face, say, why you're on my property.
Yeah, unfortunately, our hands are tied
Yeah.
because of the magistrate, but like they said, the police will be there.
Yeah, that's the important part.
Okay. If there's no further comments or questions, staff recommended motion is that the governing body adopt an ordinance to amend City Code 17-53 to remove the requirement to obtain a warrant before entering onto private property as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. 9C, amendment to the grass ordinance.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, I didn't read it yet.
Pause, sorry.
Okay. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body adopt an ordinance to amend City Code 17-49 to remove the requirement to obtain a warrant before entering onto private property as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9D. 9D is a discussion of driveway widths per Councilmember Hampton's request. We will cover a number of aspects related to this. It's good information for us and for the viewing public. Councilmember Hampton will go ahead and get us started.
Yep. So unfortunately, I only thought before I came here to put a little agenda together, so I apologize to the residents. There's nothing up here at the moment. But in front of all of my fellow city council members, there's a small agenda here. And we're here tonight to discuss, the driveway and other things that impact parking throughout the city. We know that parking continues to be an issue, specifically on the west side, because when those houses were built, my gosh, 60, 70 years ago, no one, I think, at that time ever expected the world to look like it does now. And as you also know, we have some upcoming issues with a commercial vehicle. So what we're going to have tonight, we're going to have Dean give us a review of the city ordinances regarding driveway. We're going to even ask him to speak on other ordinances that are tangent to it, home occupancy permits and the restrictions on parking regarding that, and the commercial vehicles enforcement that's going to go in the fall. Then I'll have us just quickly look at what the process is now to get approval. Mickey's not here, so all we're going to do is look at the documents that are available on the website. If we have questions, we can forward those on to Mickey for a later day. And then Laszlo's going to give us a presentation or just review a past presentation and give us some information on neighboring jurisdictions. And then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of our discussion. We'll look at some scenarios for the driveways. I've came up with 3. We may need to think a little bit more possibly about other scenarios. And then beginning some discussion, identification, and next steps. And pretty much at the end of the night, what I'm hoping is that we come up with some suggestions or recommendations or some forward movement to staff, whether that's investigating or researching some information to bring back to us. I don't see this as a one and done. I see this as many conversations and something that we really need to think about, especially since the state of driveways does impact, whether that, if whatever we come up with, we have to remember that whatever we decide does impact the value of homes, not only just the home that the person resides in, but the homes that live next door to it. One of the main complaints that I receive about parking is the parking that's done with gravel and other type of materials that really is not very good looking. Also, look at the quality of life, not only for the resident of the house with the driveway, but those in the surrounding jurisdiction, and that's jurisdictions, but surrounding neighborhood. So I think okay. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dean to kind of briefly touch on the ordinances.
All right, so the first one we need to talk about, I think that you want to talk about specifically, is this driveway ordinance. The problems in the city are that we don't have enough space for parking. The idea is you're going to be start enforcing parking regulations, but now you're telling people that they can't build wider driveways. So there seems to be some sort of a conflict there, and so we need some direction from the governing body on what you want to do. The ordinance itself that is the issue is 31 or section 3130 D6 of the city code. D5 right above it says you cannot park your vehicles on the front yard. Okay, you can't just pull up there. And I think there was a discussion amongst the governing body. Nobody wanted to change that. Okay, because that diminishes property values. The other one is the one that is in question is in the R1 or the PUD residential. So west side is largely R1, single family is R1. The east side, the single family is largely PUD residential. So they have generally the same requirements as far as the lot, though. It says you cannot, it says the no lot containing a single-family detached dwelling located in those districts can have a combined paved area for driveway and parking purposes that exceeds either 20 feet in width or 20% of the width of the front yard, whichever is greater. Laszlo's going to talk about other jurisdictions, but this one in particular was enacted in 2004. So anything that had occurred before 2004 is grandfathered in. So you may actually drive through the city and see driveways that exceed this amount. Staff looked into it, and a large number of them actually are grandfathered in. Okay, so they're not, we cannot force them to do anything. Anything that was done after that is subject to this law. Mr. Smith, who got up here and talked about, he talked briefly about how if you expand your house, you have to make sure that you can meet certain requirements found in 3127. But that's something that comes up at the site plan stage. And so the site plan wouldn't get approved for the increased size of the house if you can't park your vehicle on that lot. And the front yard's not the only place you can put your vehicle. So it doesn't say that you can only park in the front yard. And as a matter of fact, you go through the city, you'll see a lot of residential lots that have people have a driveway going in the back. They have a large parking area in the back, and some of them have a detached garage in the back. So that's not the only way you can do it. But we're talking today specifically about the situation where we have residential lots in the R1 and the PUD residential, single-family residential, that have this. Is this something that you are interested in amending or looking into amending to allow for either wider driveways or a greater percentage of total parking area between the driveways and the other on-site, off-street parking? Okay, because right now, it's very strict. Other jurisdictions are strict too, so whatever you're doing will be kind of a Manassas Park unique thing. That's the first thing. The second thing, discussion came up when we started talking about enforcement of the commercial vehicle parking in the residential districts. This is something that's been on the books for, I think it's been about a year, and it's going to start getting enforced here in the fall. It allows only 2 permitted vehicles, okay? And a permitted vehicle can be a commercial vehicle that currently the rule is 9,000 pounds or less. I think there's a proposal to make that 10,000 pounds. It might come before you at your next meeting, but right now it's 9,000. So it's not necessarily commercial vehicles are allowed to be parked on site. It's only the permitted vehicles, which includes commercial vehicles of a certain weight and below. Now, the restrictions on home occupancy, which is found in section 3132, paragraph B1, and then also subsection C, specifically says that when you have a home occupation, only one vehicle, one commercial vehicle can be associated with that. Now, some people say, well, that doesn't make sense. You're allowed to park 2 commercial vehicles in a residential district under your parking regulations, but that's not the case. You're allowed to park 2 permitted vehicles, which can include boats up to 15,000 pounds. Okay, so there's a lot more things that can be parked there, but also the commercial vehicle that is also a permitted vehicle could very well be the resident's vehicle they drive to and from their employment. And maybe that's a benefit that their employer has given them that says you can drive that home so you don't have to use your personal car. So they're parking that vehicle on their lot. So the idea that those two are in conflict is not the case. So again, a home occupancy permit, is you're taking a residential unit, and you're turning it into an accessory use as a business. Okay, it's not something that's normal, it's something that's an exception. So this is a special thing. And because of that, we have certain rules to make sure that we don't change the character of the residential district. Because otherwise, you'd have a bunch of businesses in the residence, it's a subterfuge to get around the zoning requirements. So to do that, you have to make sure that it's not overly obvious that you have a business being run there. So the one commercial vehicle is it. Now, if that one commercial vehicle is larger than 9,000 pounds, it can't be parked there in your driveway. You know, maybe you have a garage in the back, you can park it, it's out of sight, but it can't be parked either. So remember, there's 2 permitted vehicles, not 2 commercial vehicles, 2 permitted vehicles, which may be a commercial vehicle. So that's where, and I know that there was a lot of confusion in the emails that I sent out, so I just want to make sure that we're really clear on that. Okay, because that's not really what we're here to talk about as far as the driveways, but it is something that I was asked to brief because there was a lot of confusion. So did I clear it up, or is there still confusion?
It's always better
Councilmember
to,
Amaya, are you clear?
I understand what, I understand it, but it does get confusing because our residents don't listen to our meetings regularly, and then when you have it posted outside on the signs, it's not going to be specific if you want to, it's going to be confusing for them specifically. So I don't know how we're going to address it, because I understand that if it's a home occupancy, it's a different, regulation. And then we're doing the parking, and it's completely separate from the other one, but it kind of goes together in a way, so.
Well, it doesn't supersede the zoning requirement of only one
Right.
commercial vehicle. And I will point out that they actually get a permit from the zoning office that makes it very clear they can only have one. So, I mean, we have these home occupations that are complaining about the commercial parking ordinance. Well, they've been in violation the whole time, and quite frankly, if somebody had called them out on it, the zoning administrator could very well have revoked their home occupancy permit, and then they can't even operate there at their house. So it's a pretty serious issue, and I would encourage them to get in compliance, because it's not something that's going to be overlooked much longer, especially when we start doing this enforcement of the commercial parking. Their vehicles are going to get, cited.
I have one question. I know you said you're going to increase to 10,000. What type of vehicle or type of vehicles would be difference between 9,000 and 10,000 pounds?
I'm going to punt that to the city
Yeah,
manager.
I did not bring that tonight. I need more information on that. But there is a plate that the DMV provides for certain trucks that are over 10,000. That's why I'm trying to get more information on. So that helps with enforcement, because we'll see that special plate right there. So that's the goal. So because it's very, to your point, it's so hard to understand the difference between 8,800 pounds and 9,200. It's just going to be very challenging for our officers and our zoning. So we really want to simplify it as much as possible.
One other thing I want to point out is that was causing a little confusion as well is right now we have the ability for the city manager to allow for the 2 permitted vehicles, up to 2 permitted vehicles, to park on city roads if the residential unit doesn't have a driveway or a driveway or a garage. Nobody else. So if you have a driveway and or a garage, you're not allowed to park. There's no waiver for you unless you create one, and I strongly discourage you.
and this is kind of a side note, and probably something that we could probably maybe put in the minutes or just put on the city manager's to-do list. I'm here listening, and the thing that comes to mind is a what if. It's something that I've used, projects I've been on in the years, we use a lot when we have these very confusing situations. It's even something that the State Board of Election uses on election days. And it's basically, or is it if what? But those that have served as officers registrations, or I should say, officers of elections know what I'm talking about. And it says, if you're this, and then you go, and then you look through and it'll tell you what you need to do. And that might be something to help kind of diffuse some of the confusion. I would recommend talking to Trish Brindle and getting an example of I think it's the if-then that the state used to provide. I don't know if they still do, because I haven't been on the electoral board a while, that they would provide for officers of election on election day and use that as a model.
I'm not sure how I would do it with this one. I'll show you guys in a minute how we have this information
This is
already on the website.
for the residents
Yeah, I
down the
know,
road
but
as part of the
I'll show you what we already
education.
have for our residents in
Yeah.
terms of information.
But if you have any questions afterwards, just come and talk to me. Just give me a call and I can walk you through it. Might as well just use some of my background. Sure. Okay. Any more questions for Dean? Okay. So very quickly, I went on the website and pulled down what the process is now to have and you all have it, it's on the website, the process now to get approvals, to apply for and get approvals for a driveway. I don't know any more that's on here. I just know that I have myself have filled this out for when I had the fence built and had the patio put to the side of the house. So we may just get yourself familiar with this. If we have any questions, we can send them on to Mickey.
I would like to make a comment, though, on this, that is a ministerial act, and so Mickey really doesn't have a whole lot of discretion on this. If it meets the requirements of the city code, it will get approved. So there's no discretion there. It just is what it is.
Let me ask you this, is there a requirement for like any stormwater management if they increase the percentage?
Well, that's one of the concerns, because the driveway has to be impervious.
Right.
And you're right, it does. So they do have to come in, I believe they have to come in with a lot plat, and they have to draw in there. I don't think that I think they are carved out in the stormwater management ordinance for that. And Calvin, if he's still here, do you happen to know off the top of your head if individual residences are carved out from having to submit a site plan if they increase the impervious area? So in this case, it would be a driveway added to a lot that doesn't have a driveway? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I don't know off the top of my head the answer.
So a full site plan would probably be triggered by something like a drainage study. That'd be the closest thing, but we don't have any requirements in our current ordinance that require any sort of drainage study for improvements. So right now, what you submit to improve your driveway or to improve your property by adding like a fence or a driveway or changing any of the characteristics of your property is a plat showing the proposed improvements so that the zoning administrator can confirm that they do or do not comply with the zoning code, but not a full site plan.
Right, so they would not have to, for instance, create any kind of stormwater management system for adding a driveway.
No, we would have to modify our code to require drainage study and drainage analysis for those things.
So the answer is that no, it doesn't come into play right now.
So that's what a lot of jurisdictions do.
Yeah.
I mean, they,
Probably should,
Yeah.
but we don't.
a lot of my clients build houses and they want extra driveway. And I know Fairfax Station, they're really strict. They won't even, they want a whole water management done. Yeah.
Well, staff has had this discussion, and we think about the text probably more than anybody because we live in it when we're making decisions about what people are asking to do. The problem that we have is the cost of the engineered design. So to put in a driveway that may cost somebody $5,000 to $10,000, we're then asking them to spend potentially $20,000 in engineering design alone. The lot then has to be topographically surveyed. Someone has to come out, determine where the drainage divides are. Then they have to design it all out and figure out what they have to do to move the water elsewhere. And you wind up spending as much in design as you do in the improvements. And to a lot of people, that would be very cost prohibitive in improving their property. So that's something to consider when we're considering things like this. Yes, other jurisdictions do require drainage studies, and I'm often get people calling me floored by the fact that we don't. But those are usually engineers too, wondering, how come they're not getting work from Manassas Park? So,
Calvin, while you're there, what kind of materials could be used for driveways other than asphalt and concrete? Can one use rocks or pebbles or stone or what?
I believe there actually is a prohibition against stone, but Mickey would know that better than
Okay.
I. I'm not versed in that. I don't approve driveways, so I don't ever get asked that question. I'm the structure guy. But If Mickey was here, she probably could tell you I believe there is something she's pointed out to me before that says you have to use specific types of materials. And that might have happened with a recent text amendment, if I'm not mistaken, Dean.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm pretty sure we have a limitation that you cannot use gravel. I'm almost positive of that. I just can't find
Many
it.
years we were hand tied with that, but I think that was resolved through a recent text amendment, so.
Was there a reason, what is the reason that gravel cannot be used?
Because it's impervious.
The primary reason, it's just, so the biggest complaint I used to receive all the time was from residents whose neighbors had gravel driveways and the gravel is out in the street because it's very hard to contain.
Okay.
Most of our driveways are not flat. There's no way to really put any sort of containing device down there where the curb, the concrete apron meets the driveway, and what tends to happen is the gravel gets drug out by the car tires and eventually makes its way into the street. Now you have tires picking up rocks and throwing them at other cars, and that's the most common complaint I heard for, you know.
Okay.
And it is 3127. Again, 3127 requires that, it says that off-street parking areas, service areas, interior travel lanes, or driveways shall be surfaced with a stable material such as asphalt or concrete. So I guess you could use grasscrete or something like that probably that's very stable and would allow a little bit more of the runoff to be absorbed into the ground. We have used that elsewhere, but I don't know about in driveways.
Well, and in terms of runoff, permeable pavement's becoming a very big thing in the industry because you can allow the water to soak through the pavement and back into the ground.
Calvin, can you say that again a little bit closer?
Permeable pavement has become really big in the industry. It's considered a best management practice. So instead of the water hitting the pavement and all running off, a substantial amount of the water is able to soak through the pavement and make its way back into the groundwater table. So that we don't exclude that. We say, you know, we would consider permeable pavement to be a similar stable structure. It's just that gravel and stone are not stable. They're easily moved and drug around, so.
Thank you, Calvin.
And answered.
I got one more question before you continue. I guess my next question is if they expand a driveway, they technically can't touch the apron or the curb, right? And say like they wanted to expand the entrance as well.
No, they just have to get permission. So if it's in the city's right of way, they just get permission to do that.
I see.
So you have to
So they could come all the way up to, I guess, city-owned. It's probably city-owned.
It's in the right of way. It's city-owned
right
right
of
of
way,
way.
yeah.
But yeah, to access the driveway, I mean, say if you have a lot that doesn't have a driveway, they're going to have to put an apron in there to be able to access the driveway.
Well, I meant like expanding already existing driveway. And they
Right,
want to
as
make
long as it
another.
meets the width requirements, you'd be fine.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
We have a permit called an apron permit. It is in the public right of way, so it is per a VDOT design standard. But if you want to enlarge or create or replace your apron,
Yeah.
then you can go ahead and pull an apron permit. There is a deposit for the concrete work. We inspect the work pre-pour to make sure that your formwork complies with VDOT standards. Then we inspect it 30 days after you pour to make sure that it's held up, because it is something we are taking on maintenance responsibility for. But there is an entire procedure in place, and we get many of them a year. So
So can they have like maybe like two entrances that kind of go in front of the house like
Well,
that?
let's kind of hold off on that because we've got a long way. We got a bunch more to talk about.
Okay, yeah, I was just, he was
Yeah,
up
we
there.
could
so I
put
was
that on a
wondering.
parking lot. Yessie, would you mind, like we do with our meetings, can you start creating a parking lot? So what we'll do, I'm not saying no, but we'll create a parking lot. We'll keep track of these questions. We'll send them on, and then we can get this information back to us.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. And actually, it's right in here about the driveway apron. It's like $300.
No, well, all right, that's fine. We'll
Yeah.
answer those questions later.
All right. So with that, and thank you, Yessie, for taking care of the parking lot, which is ironic since we're talking about driveways. So now we're going to move on to Laszlo, and he's going to go do an overview for us. And by all means, this is not an extensive overview because we didn't give him a whole lot of time. to go and research.
Okay, so just as a reminder, when you go on our city website, this is the first thing that pops up. And we're going to expand this and also translate it into Spanish as well. We're working on preparation for our town hall that will occur in August or September? September. I have a development town hall in August that we'll do across the city, but I'll do this one in September, and we'll have pictures of violations, existing examples, types of cars, all that to kind of try to make it easier. But the way we have this structured is exactly what Dean was talking about before, but we have the first half of this references what police are going to do on city streets. It defines, what a commercial vehicle is, that police are going to go out and ticket on public streets. Does that make sense? And it lists everything here. And then we're going to add a bunch of pictures showing what that means and real world examples of violations, hours. And then the second part, you see how it's highlighted here, permitted commercial vehicle or permitted vehicle, like Dean was talking about before, that is allowed to be parked on your driveway if you have driveway, or that you can get a permit from the city if you don't have a driveway, and it defines what those are. So we kind of define it already in those two ways here. There's only two scenarios. Either you're parked on the street or you're parking it on the driveway. We define both, and the town hall will have pictures to delineate that as well. So that's how it's shown on our website. So we still have to translate in Spanish. We're also going to put a map showing all the areas in the city where it's going to be covered as well. In terms of historical presentation, so we did a parking and community maintenance town hall on January of 2021, so well into the pandemic, where we started reviewing code enforcement issues, parking, but we really delve deep into parking. And if you go to slide 24 of that presentation, we provided a list of options for the governing body to consider to help out with parking. And a lot of these were done, right? So with the FY24 budget now, we're going to have 2 FTEs for parking enforcement. So we got there, right? We added the code enforcement officer, and then we looked at different parking scenarios, whether we want to go to permit parking or decal overnight parking. And then we even talked about reducing limitations on driveway width and lot coverage. So we brought this idea up already 2 years ago as a public policy consideration, and that was even higher than prohibiting commercial vehicles, which was the final decision that you all went to. So again, this was already evaluated from a public policy standpoint for the entire city, and no action was taken back then. You guys went with this one as kind of a priority option.
I wouldn't say that no action was taken. I think we just decided at that time that was not the best course of action for the residents.
Yes, yep, but for all residents. So this was evaluated for all residents at that time, and it wasn't decided on at that time. So since then, we have been enforcing. We've had 2 recent additional cases where the residents have come into compliance with the driveway widths. We're talking about driveway widths here, not the number of driveways, but total widths. So we talked about that also on slide 36. Let me get to that. So we talked about the limitations on this and repealing it, but we did mention some downsides, and one of them was brought up earlier was stormwater itself, right? We were concerned about flooding on the west side. We remember we're doing this whole drainage analysis, stormwater, environmental concerns as well, aesthetics of property. So those are the things that we discussed at that time. So that's just kind of a reminder that this was evaluated before and decided there was no decision made at that time. And so what I've done is I've looked at our sister cities and what they do, and we are the most generous already when it comes to driveway widths, with the exception of houses that have front lots that are between 100 and 125 feet in width. In those scenarios, Manassas is actually more generous, where they allow up to 25 feet. But other than that, you can see Fairfax City, 18 feet is what they allow. Falls Church, 14 feet. City of Manassas, 15 feet. If your front lot is between 30 and 59 feet in width, you you can only do 15 feet. So we're more generous than that already because we would allow 20 feet in that scenario. In this scenario, if your front lot is 60 feet to 99 feet, they would allow 20 feet, as do we. If your lot is more than 100 feet, they do allow for 25 feet. We wouldn't get to the 25 feet until your lot gets to, well over 125 feet. Does that make sense? At that point, we become more generous because then you can go bigger than 25 feet at that time. There's not a lot of properties in our city that are over 100 feet. You do have some on both the west side and the east side, but the majority are probably going to fall within this range of 60 to 99 feet. So really, Manassas and Manassas Park have kind of the most extensive. So if you're looking to expand this to make sure that you are the more favorable, I would recommend for city lots that are greater than 100 to at least go 25 feet, but I'd actually recommend 27 because normally for parking spaces, you're looking at 9 feet per vehicle. So 9 times 3, right? You would essentially, by increasing from 20 to 27, now you'd be able to park 3 vehicles versus the 2 right now that you can with the 20 feet. Does that make sense? So if you're looking to become the most generous jurisdiction from our sister cities, I do recommend expanding the greater than 100 feet to 27 feet. Any questions?
That's, the measurement is from, like, the width of the property, or it's not square feet, right? That's just the width?
The width, yes.
Is there a possibility to go and look at other jurisdictions in the DMV? Maybe like what they do in certain parts of Maryland, as well as other parts of Virginia, not just Northern Virginia, but I'm thinking places that are kind of older, maybe like Richmond, or places where there's colleges like Blacksburg. Can we get, or even Fredericksburg?
Yeah, that's your discretion. We can look at that, yeah, but we try to benchmark ourselves after our sister cities here in
Yeah.
Northern Virginia.
But I think it would behoove us to look at other, just look beyond just Northern Virginia, especially more established cities.
More established?
Yeah, meaning as old as Manassas Park, or maybe have similar problems.
You mean as new as Manassas Park? Because we're newer than these cities.
Well, that's true, but yeah. But some of those places in Fairfax City are around this, or a little bit newer than Manassas Park, some of the housing.
The developments?
Yeah.
I got you, okay. Yeah, all right.
What do you all think?
Yeah.
What are you recommending?
Yeah, so what I'm recommending is if you guys want to make sure you're the most generous of the sister cities, right? We always compare ourselves, our policies, everything. We're trying to benchmark ourselves off of these jurisdictions from a legal standpoint. We always like to look at these cities versus the counties who operate in different legal structure. So we look at these three cities. So if we want to be the most generous, we already are for the most case, except for the one exception here, the 25 feet. So I'm recommending for lots in our city that are 100 feet or more wide to actually change it to 27 feet. That would be the most generous because then you could fit 3 cars.
Do you know how many lots that applies to?
I would have to count, but I was going with GIS and just measuring. It's not that many. The majority, I think, do fit this category here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before we make a decision, what I'm recommending is that we actually take a look at other, expand the research. Not just our sister cities, but look at other parts of the Commonwealth, maybe even some towns. Just off the top of my head, like I was saying, maybe Fredericksburg, maybe Richmond, maybe Blacksburg. Even look at maybe some places in Maryland, so we can get a better pulse of what's done out there.
If we do go that route, I would suggest that we look at jurisdictions that have the similar challenges as Manassas Park, have similar demographic. We may have issues in Northern Virginia that they would not have in Southern Virginia. Cost of living affects a lot of things, so I would be concerned about which jurisdiction we're comparing ourselves to.
Yeah, I'd probably want some
I
guidance.
assume not to bog your team down. I understand to research maybe a few more, but you're generally within the same range, even if you go further for this type of issue. Am I correct?
What do you mean the same range? Like
I'm assuming they're almost generally in the same range in all parts of any government.
you're talking about the driveway widths?
Yeah.
I mean, I can start taking a look at others and I can come back. Like, if you want me to look at the towns also in Northern Virginia,
I think so, yeah. Because you look at,
like Herndon, Vienna.
right, you drive through Vienna and you can see that there's a lot of older homes, right, that are being demolished, and they're building the newer homes, so they must have some sort of new ordinance regarding driveways and such.
How many applications do we get a month for driveway improvements?
How many
How many
violations?
applications
Oh,
do we get?
applications
Yeah.
for driveway improvements.
how many do we
Calvin, do you
get a
know off the
month?
top of your head or not? We'll have to go back and research. Yeah, or driveway improvements.
Improvements,
How many do you get a year on average?
yeah, everyone's,
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to get that
We
information.
can put that on the parking lot.
Yeah.
So what did he say?
We're gonna have to research it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, my thought on this is I mean, we could do the research like Madam Mayor just said. I mean, it's not going to be comparable to what we have. And honestly, I think, the parking situation that we have here in Manassas Park, we need to address it. And improving driveway to fit more cars in there, I think would be the logical choice. And that's what we should strive for. I mean, we could do research, but at the end of the day, how can we fit more cars on the driveway?
Well, before we go down that path, so what I'm trying to, let's kind of talk about the situations that we might encounter, right? So what I'm doing tonight is very similar to what you do in the business world, especially when you're developing new software, you're looking at the different use cases, the different pain points, and before we dive into a solution, let's go through the exercise. Like I said, this is not a one and done. Let's take, we have a little bit of time. The whole idea behind out today is just to come back with some direction to the staff. I don't think we're really ready for a solution. We haven't done enough research.
right.
Right, no, I understand that, but what type of information you're looking for that will sway your opinion either
I
way?
don't know till I see it.
Okay.
I truly don't know. I'm not an expert in driveways.
So is there something hesitation for increasing driveway width?
I want information. I need
Okay,
information.
that's fine, fair enough, that's
Yeah.
fine. My only thing, my thing is that the 100 feet lot thing, we could look at that, right? See if there's a lot that's doing 50 feet with 27 or 20 with driveways,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean,
We can put that on the parking lot as part, the next round.
sure, yeah, that's fine.
I'm sorry, just repeat. So you said
I'm saying the lot size, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I might be 100-foot lots here in Manassas Park, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be lot sizes less than 100 foot.
oh, the majority are gonna be less than 100.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if they could fit an expanded driveway without that restriction, then I don't see what are we going to be. I mean, that would be a plus, right?
Yeah.
You get the cars off the street, you allow them to expand their driveway to, allocate those extra cars.
How would that work with the HOAs? If we
There's no
allow
HOA on that side.
bigger
HOA is-
driveways on,
HOA already has the rules.
so they wouldn't apply to them?
No, not the
Okay.
HOA regulation.
Just permissive.
Okay.
Yeah. Wouldn't require anyone to do
Right.
something.
Any more questions for Laszlo?
Do you know, back to the commercial vehicles, when the town hall date, you referred to a town hall in September, do you know the date yet?
Sarah?
Great.
September 14th, 7 p.m. September 17th at 10:30 at the community center gym. That one's in Spanish.
September what?
17.
That's an AM or PM?
AM. It's right after Spanish Mass
Okay.
at the community center. September 20th at 7 p.m. at the banquet hall at the community center, and that one's in Spanish and will be live streamed. September 21st at 7 p.m. at the community center banquet hall in English. And then September 25th at 7 p.m. here in the boardroom in English, and that will be live streamed.
Where's the one on the 14th?
That one's at Cougar, sorry.
Great, thank you.
In English.
Laszlo, can you email those out to us? those dates?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Sarah.
Just a recommendation. I do think you guys should engage the public if you're going to be looking at expanding driveway widths, because that does impact property values and perceptions. If your majority of your front yard is going to be a parking lot,
Driveway, yeah.
it may get some pushback from the community. So I just recommend you guys engage the community before you do anything like that.
Do we have any idea how many residences this would impact?
What do you mean? Like what specifically?
That are over the required width?
I'm not sure. I'm
How many,
understanding.
How many exceed the
homes-
20?
I'm sorry.
How many would be impacted by any change, or how many that exceed the 20% or 20 feet?
Currently exceed.
Oh, how many violations are there right now?
Yes.
So there's been, I don't know if Mickey brought the fourth violation, but there's been three definitely over the last few months, but two of them have already rectified their driveway. So there's
They
at least
have.
one remaining. I don't know if that second one was brought or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the total of 4, that's not all there is, or is it?
Well,
Or
there's a lot of
grandfathered in.
driveways that might be wider, but to Dean's point, they were grandfathered in. They were done before 2004, yeah. So we got a lot of pictures over the last few months of violations, and we either go out and measure or we determine that it was done before 2004.
So this only affects four homes, is that correct?
Well, at this point, only one or two, yeah.
1 or 2?
Yeah, because the other two have already fixed their issue.
But that doesn't also take into consideration the people that go ahead and park in the yards on the grass.
Okay.
So any more questions for Laszlo, so we can actually get into the heart of the discussion?
No.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go now into bullet point 4, and I only came up with, off the top, like I said, I did this, I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier. I did this about 5:30 this afternoon. I identified 3 scenarios, and I want us to figure out if there are more. The first scenario, and this is for people that, scenarios regarding driveways. The first one is really easy. People that do not have a driveway, but they want a driveway. The second one is a resident who wishes to expand the existing driveway. And the third one is the resident whose current driveway falls short of current code. Now, keep in mind, to Dean's point, anything that was built before the code change, which was in 2004, so almost 20 years ago, is grandfathered in. Any other scenarios that y'all can think of?
Well, it's related to number 1, residents who want a driveway but currently does not have a driveway because they can't afford it or because their lot doesn't allow it. I mean, there's some difference, I think there.
Right, a sub-scenario underneath
The
this.
sub-scenarios, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Because you would desire a driveway, but your lot just won't accommodate one.
Yeah, I've seen some that the terrain would absolutely not allow it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we talk about parking on the lawn, and you said how widening the driveway would eliminate that, are we concerned about parking on the grass or parking on the front yard? Because if there was a widened driveway, they would still be essentially parking in the front yard.
Well, per our code, you can't park on the grass.
Okay, I see.
And that's what, when you drive around, you see a lot of that. Or what I'm starting to see, because residents have brought it to my attention, there's an existing driveway, but because we have the enforcement going in now, they're expanding the driveway with gravel. That's the newest one that's been brought to my attention.
So it's not a case of, well, we don't want people parking too many cars in the front of their home.
Honestly, I think it's a balance, right? So the last thing you want is someone's front yard to have 30 cars in the front yard. Because once again, that's the quality of life. It brings down the value of the home aesthetically. It's not appealing. I mean, in essence, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the individual that not only owns the home, but that lives next door to it. Now, you all are fortunate in a way because you have a HOA over there that kind of protects you. But folks that live on the west side or a place where there's an HOA, it's to some degree, it's a wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, we may not come up with a resolution tonight or a solution tonight. This might be one of many conversations.
Yeah. I think we do need more information. Yeah, okay.
What type of information do you think we need?
Well, from comparable jurisdictions.
Okay.
They have the same challenges that we do.
Okay. Let's see.
I think we need to do what Laszlo said. We
Yes,
need to
town
get,
hall.
we need to get input from the community if it's aesthetics that bothers them or if it's, being comfortable in their home. If you see, that's why I wanted to know also how many driveway applications you're getting, because if everyone's, trying to find a way to park, because there's no parking, so we need to kind of get that information too from residents to see how they feel about the aesthetics of our side, of our properties. Maybe they don't think that it's gonna create a downside on the property value for their property, because that's where they're gonna stay. I mean, they're not thinking about that.
Yeah.
So-
Do we also want to consider parking in just the front, or as Dean mentioned that, is it also, I know some jurisdictions also have some sort of limitations or guidelines for parking all throughout the property, like what you can and can't do. Do we want to go down that path as well? Or at least just take a look at that information, so we have that at our disposal?
I think we should look at that as well, because, again, if there's so much concrete and there's not enough grass for the flow of the water and the flooding, I mean, everything has to be looked into. It's not just one thing, like you said.
Right. It's like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, so far our takeaways are look at other jurisdictions that have comparable issues. A town hall, I'm hearing.
Yes, absolutely, a town hall.
Okay. And when we're also looking at those other jurisdictions also, are we asking to look at just the front yard, or are we also looking at the whole enchilada?
The whole enchilada.
Is there a way to, depending upon the options that we choose, to figure out in advance what the impact is going to be on the home value?
Right.
That's
Because
more
it's
of a-
nice to know that in advance.
That's more of a Hasib question. That's his wheelhouse.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Hasib, the expert. Let's go.
How can we do that? How can we do that?
What was the question, sorry?
Hasib.
I'm wondering if there's a way to try to project the effect on home values of the scenarios that we're talking about.
Like if you have a wide driveway.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you can look at comparables of houses with driveways, like the two-car garages versus a one-car garage. Value for those houses are much more because you have additional parking, right?
What if your driveway is like really large, excessively large to these numbers? Does that?
Oh, you're saying if it's too large, extra? Yeah, I mean, it's going to affect the overall comparables. As when you get an appraisal, say your neighbor gets an appraisal and your next door neighbor has 30 cars parked in there, it's going to be unfavorable for that neighbor.
To
No
the
question about
neighbor
it.
adjacent to the house with the few dozen cars.
Yeah.
So when we get to the scenarios, when we actually start narrowing down our scenarios, is there a way you can kind of help us, kind of give us like some sort of percentages of what the impact may be?
Yeah, I could pull whatever data you need.
Okay. All right. So
Also,
that,
I'm interested to see what happens after we start the enforcement of the commercial vehicles, because we were hoping that that's going to free up parking, and that's why we had kind of waited on everything else. We wanted to see how the commercial vehicle, plus the having two officers enforcing now.
Yeah.
So I need to see how that's going to shake out first as well.
Right.
Yeah,
well, that's
plus
the
the
good, this is the good thing about it, right? We're not making a decision right away. We take our time, we do it right, we look at all the bits of information and make our best decision with the information that we have.
I would suggest right now that we bring our discussion to a close and have everyone email any additional questions or additional thoughts to Laszlo.
Okay.
Copy the rest of us.
And really quick, can we go over the takeaways, Yessie?
So we have something to figure out with the two driveways and the aprons, and how many driveways, applications do we get a year? Look at lot sizes, what's the average, and then look at other jurisdictions, more town halls, or more jurisdictions and then a town hall. Are we going to look at the whole enchilada, because that's what you said? Or just the front yard? And Hasib can pull data for comparables.
And I think,
I just want to add one thing. It came up in our discussion with Calvin, the permeable pavements. I think going forward, we should require any new driveways to be permeable pavements.
I like that, but I did a quick Google search. They're actually like double the cost.
Well,
I like the environmental
I really
impact, but
considered.
I would like to know, like, I don't know that we would be able to afford.
Or
We can
maybe
investigate.
investigate, put it in the parking lot, we can look
yeah,
at it.
investigate.
Yeah.
Do we also want to investigate the, what was it that Hasib, you mentioned? Talking about the water flow The storm,
Storm management, yeah, stormwater management, yeah.
do we want to investigate that as well?
I think it should be on the list. Because if you put concrete in a driveway, the water's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah. And not everybody's
It's gonna go in
going,
the street.
right, and not everybody's going to do landscaping to absorb.
Most people.
What if you said that you could make them wider if they use the permeable asphalt?
Yeah.
Instead of the 20 feet, they go
Yeah.
30 feet
Oh, I
if
like
they,
that, an incentive.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
Pay that extra money.
right,
Yeah, I like that.
That's great.
more traction with that.
And maybe if they did a permeable.
When you're here, man.
I just have really
But we
have
can-
problems asking people to do something that's twice as expensive.
Right, yeah,
Twice,
yeah.
it's twice.
Yes.
But they might. But having more vehicles might be worth it for them.
Yeah, a couple college kids.
We can put that in a potential, what's the word I'm looking for? Solution category. Okay, anything else?
Well, I guess we're done with that. Email anything else you can think of to Laszlo and copy the rest of us. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our second public comment time. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move on to city manager's report.
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay. We do have a closed session. Dean, would you read us into closed session?
I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting to discuss the performance of a specific city officer pursuant to paragraph 1 of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. We'll go into closed session, 5-minute comfort break.
Did we give this to Ms. Connor? Those pictures?
Liza, is this for you? I don't know if it's for you. The pictures. I don't know if he wants them back.
No, Michael Smith, Mike Smith. There's more than one Mike in this world, Mike.
I know. Kids can appreciate what you're
What's your coming home?
I need it.
Talk about driveway materials.